just take a pause and then I'll talk, and so words will rise and then words will fall as they run out. And then I'm sure towards the end what will happen is I'll begin to try to create words and it will seem less authentic. And when I notice that movement, then I'll stop talking. Well, please God, that happens. That's the intention as we begin. Human beings necessarily experience a world of objects. We are born, we are enculturated, we are conditioned, we are schooled, and we are taught the morality of our age, of our community, of our cultures. And we experience life through our senses from what appears to be a distinct vantage point. Our word for this vantage point is I. I think, I feel, I like, I dislike, I do, I don't do, I holiday, I dance, I suffer, I joy, so on and so forth. And as we experience the world through the senses, we necessarily filter what we experience, be it people, places, things, through all prior conditioning. In so doing, there's a measure of experience based on the accumulative learning, teaching, and our sense of purpose, morals, meaning, definition. So we try to make sense of the world and our world as life seems to come to us and be known by us. So we measure the external life with our internal life. All of this is moved along time's line, the underlying or unconscious impetus of birth and any trauma that brings, a sense of separation from the parent, and then of course the later separation as we grow and develop and invest in relationships other than those primary relationships, and more intimate relationships of our own, and so on and so forth. And so we forge a path, undertake the journey in the search for happiness and meaning in where we might find happiness. This changes, adapts, evolves, devolves, subtracts, reduces, falls apart, flourishes, and so it goes. Yet all the time is this sense of the I that experiences life in this way. All of us know experiences of suffering. These might be tragedy, selfishness, brokenness, and outright emptiness with a small e. We may know joy, we may know radical connectivity, we may know ecstasy, and we may know community, excitement, peace, finally pockets of happiness or seasons of happiness, seemingly enduring, but then sometimes to somehow vanish without an understanding of why. This somewhat limited expression describes the human experience. And the fundamental component of an experience of life in such a way is as a distinct, separate individual experiencing a world of object relationships. So the subject experiences numerous objects. Most of us in the midst of difficulty, many of us in the midst of peak experiences and spiritual experiences, we might say, encounter events, circumstances and situations in our life that force us to ask other questions, larger questions. A great example is loss, the shock, the grief of loss, the hearing of a particular phrase, being told about some tragic information, perhaps someone's died or we've become gravely ill, force us into experiences that threaten our sense of separation, our sense of purpose, our direction in life, where we thought we were going and how we thought we were getting there, and all of the seeking and all of the searching and the plans and programs for where happiness might be found collapse in an instant. Many of us, if not all of us, will know experiences of being told particular things that bring us to the end of the understanding we were in prior to being told. Perhaps we were told someone has died, someone very close to us has died, or that we're ill, or that a job has ended, or that a home is no longer to be our home. Excuse me. Or maybe we had a baby, and maybe we fell in love. Maybe we were asked by someone else if we would become their partner. If we were asked if, would you be my wife? Would you be my husband? And life lit up and the plan seemed to become whole. Well, we like wholeness. Wholeness is when the experience of understanding or fruition or completion appears and the thought stream temporarily ends, the searching and the searcher, the seeking and the seeker comes to an end. Understanding is reached and no thought, no plan, no program is necessary. Quite soon the sense separation, the egoic mind, the monkey mind of the thinking infrastructure, soon creates an articulation of that sense of peace and wholeness, even if it's just a simple thought and the expression of that thought verbally as, I'm very happy, I'm peaceful. It soon turns into a narrative that fills the person's sense of meaning and purpose. So we fill up our lives with endless words, and at times, these words are profound, at times, many times, maybe too numerous times to mention, these words are pointless and useless. Our heads are filled with repetitive thoughts, useless thoughts even. And of course, we all encounter profound, rich thinking, feeling, sensing, activities and experiences. And once more, this describes the human experience quite well, or somewhat at least. But again, we come to these larger questions, and it's as if our life then deviates. Maybe some of us will begin to explore and encounter spiritual principles or therapeutic principles, or encounter support that will enable us to find answers to these deeper questions. And very soon we quickly encounter new ideas of where happiness might be found, and develop and design new ideas of where this happiness can be found through plans and programs, a new design for a new way of living. And these are great. But we begin to move along a richer path, a deeper path. And the end of this search, the end of all search and inquiry, should take us to that sense of beyond defining ourselves by the objects in our lives, by the roles in our lives, and in the end by all that is temporary in our lives. Not defining ourselves by what we do, the relationships we have in our lives, the roles we have, our beliefs, our morality, our history, our wounds, our brokenness, our successes. All of these are interchangeable. And if any of us, as we survey our lives, look at the identification in these separate places, we soon encounter the interchangeability of all these things, because things are what they are, of course. All schools of thought, be it religious, therapeutic, spiritual, humanistic, philosophical, in the end, they all point us to what Aldous Huxley called the perennial philosophy, or the perennial tradition. They bring us round to absolute truth and out, finally, of our relative truth as we found it in objective experience. And we find ourselves living from a platform of absolute truth. We are become self-aware. This isn't to become so full of information and so smart and so clever that we attain by works and deeds a mind that is so elevated it's above mere mortal things. But it is to become aware of the limits of this separate sense of identification, of continually seeking for happiness in outside objects of people, places and things. We reach the end of those inquiries and we uncover, we realize, we awaken to that which is permanent, that which has always been present, in presence, in experience and as experience. And finally we uncover that sense of beingness, that isness, that awareness, this absolute divine self, this true self, without a second, that has been ever present. One of the usual routes for this is through meditation, and of course many people encounter such practices by the very exhaustion of trying to find happiness in life by our very thinking patterns, by our own imagined sense of will. I mean, if anyone thinks there is a will, a free will, look at the entire history of your life and ask yourself, has it, in principle, or in the end, really gone the way you would like it to have gone? Or does life seem to have appeared for you in many guises, in many spaces, with many faces, countless places? Life, in the end, is happening to us. We are not doing it, it's being done to us. This should be a relief. And once we let go, or once we necessarily are forced to realize a surrender, or even if we feel or think that we are the one surrendering, the thing to surrender is the idea that we are doing anything. Now, this isn't a hopeless, nihilistic viewpoint. This is the evaporation of the sense of separation, of individuation, and to encounter oneself in all others, to see and to know the quality that is ever present in oneself as the experience of the other person. When we meet other people, we realize, we know that the foundation of the experience of other people is the knowing of oneself in the encounter, knowing itself being the quality that is ever present to our sense of I, or the space in which the I thought arises, is known. And you appear to me as the knowing of the space in which the I thought arises, as a movement of that same knowing. And in that, and in all of us, and in every encounter, the knowing quality is the divine self. We are not one. We are not two. We are undivided.